Willkommen, bonjour, welcome. I don't know which particular language they prefer to use in Switzerland, in this case, a band from Switzerland that is Borgne. Here we have the latest album, Renaître, les fanges. I guess that bonjour part was more or less correct. But pardon for my pronunciation. I'm not French-speaking citizen, nor even English. Let's do it in Finnish. No, just kidding. Point here is multitude of languages from a neutral country as from Switzerland, a cultural landscape, a very, very interesting country in terms of metal history. Obviously, everybody knows the bands like Celtic Frost and Samael and beyond, but let's face it, there are a bunch of other metal bands, very relevant ones too, coming from Switzerland, always been a kind of a unique, one-of-a-kind snowflake country when it comes to extreme metal. But as you have seen throughout Rauta's course of history so far, I've even managed to interview a few Swiss bands, including Borgne a few years ago at Steelfest, by the way. And as such, should not come as a surprise, I'm talking about these. I find the country very, very fascinating, and I find Swiss bands for a reason very, very fascinating. Like I said, it's a neutral territory, country with so many languages and weird mindsets for in sense of many different perspectives, but that's what makes the band even more interesting. Here is the current lineup, which has been the case for I guess a few years now, but mostly it operates around this one man. Not to say Lady Chaos doesn't have a place to be there. I mean, of course she has. She's a wonderful person as well. But the point here is, this was more or less started, or at least, controlled by this one person ever since the late 90s when the band came to be. What can we really talk about this new album? Let's tune for Metal Archives as the backdrop. So, coming from Lausanne, which I guess is the more French-speaking part of Switzerland. Well, I guess here I don't really know. Never been to Switzerland, unfortunately. Borgne has always been more or less about industrial black metal. And their history is quite extensive if you look at the whole discography. Even more interesting it goes if you look at the main man, Borgne, who has been doing drums, vocals, guitars ever since. Look at this huge amount of bands. And it's just not like, these bands are just demo level things, but they're bands which have done multitude of, releases as well. And then you look at this Borgne lineup discography already, and you're like, what the hell? This guy is either a genius or a crazy person, or both. And some of these other bands, which include bands like My Death Belongs to You, a doom metal thing, or Pure, a more straightforward black metal thing, are something that I have also, been reviewing on the channel. But Borgne is the band of these guys' projects I have talked about more or less the most. So here it is, full discography on Metal Archive site. What started in 1998 with one album took several years before the album 2 and 3, which came, around the same year. And then number 4, 2009. So quite an interesting start. Very slow at first and then full speed ahead. That was then again followed by 2010, 2012, 2015. You get the idea. Lots of albums coming out every few years basically. And that's the story with us as well. Now, between Thames Morts and Y, which was only 1 year, now it was 4 years between Thames Morts, which is probably the best album so far. I mean, I have only heard a few Borgne albums, not the whole discography, so I cannot talk it about as whole. But retrospective video will be done eventually, someday, someplace, because when I have interviewed a band, I want to go deeper into it when I have the time. But this time we talk about this particular album number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Crazy how the time flies. So, Renaître, this is fanges. That's the best I can do in French, because I don't really speak French. What we have here as a cover is rather gothic thing going on. You have these spirits or ghosts, specters of some sort. You have the birds, maybe ravens, cemetery. Fascinating, really. Looks great, to be honest. And all the song titles are in French. So it's not, unfortunately, the most English-friendly stuff what we have here. So we're talking about 65 minutes of industrial black metal. Now that alone, I mean the length is already kind of a mind-blowingly much. That is, you're gonna need quite a bit of time to digest it. So if you're gonna call this review is unfair because it's based only a few listens through the 65 minutes and all, yeah, I guess it's a fair point. There are no, fair reviews when it comes to Rauta. There are only honest opinions, and only so much time can be given for each and every album. We don't have the luxury of having years spent with the albums and then finally coming up with an opinion or review for that matter. So here it goes. We have these 8 tracks throughout the 65 minutes, industrial black metal, straightforward, a fast tempo, aggressive, black, dark, somewhat evil, sinister. Did I cover it all? Pretty much. Now the good thing with Borgne is they are staying true to their style, meaning it is indeed very, very industrial sounding and in a sense very clinical, very polished, but not overly, nothing like AI generated, produced kind of a black metal. Meaning that this industrial take or kind of a machine-like feeling is kind of dominating the whole music here. Now obviously you have the kind of a classic, the kind of a second wave inspired black metal riffs throughout the whole course of action, as well as the vocals which are very much going hand in hand on that. Now, obviously, because it's a duo, meaning Lady Chaos is doing keyboards and Borgne is doing everything else, means there are keyboards, which then again, you can see this in many ways, but I'm going to say it like this. It's adding to the value of creating this industrial black metal. But obviously the question is raised now and somebody's raising their hands. I'm going to answer you. No, it doesn't sound like Mysticum. Because that's probably one key point people are going to ask. Like, hey, does it sound like Mysticum? Doing a lot of drugs and going overly violent with machine gun drums and all that stuff. No. There are clear differences between bands like this or bands like Thorns. Norwegian black metal, when it comes to industrial black metal, was dominated 2 bands. Mysticum and Thorns. Both are roughly in the same ballpark, but also quite different. One is very, very violent, aggressive, straightforward. The other is more like slowly working machines, but with more kind of sinister atmosphere. Both are great bands, but they don't really have the same kind of feeling what Borgne has. Borgne is, I guess, a step closer to more traditional Nordic black metal. Well, let's call it European black metal because it's a vast territory. But kind of a second wave black metal is somewhere there as the soil where the roots grow up from, and that's how the guitar riffs come into place. But of course, with a more industrial touch and more modern sound, this is more like more modern black metal. Is it enough to justify to call it third wave black metal? I would say no, because a lot of those third wave modern black metal bands tend to be more dissonant in style. We can blame it or thank for that, bands like Deathspell Omega, and then again later on a lot of Icelandic black metal. So while Borgne is modern, it kind of stops before the new era or step of evolution begins. And either way, I don't really care which you prefer or where you draw the line. Everybody probably draws these lines in different ways. But I'm gonna say this is like the ending era of the second wave black metal, the kind of far away from the early 90s and all that stuff, but still maintaining the roots, which I find actually interesting and good. Now, songwriting wise, this is both a success and a little bit of a miss. A little bit of a miss because a lot of these songs remind kind of too much one another. And when you have these extra lengthy songs like the third track, 11 minutes almost, or songs passing 8-minute tracks so often, yeah, they could be really more compact. And this is a point I keep making a lot. People can disagree with it, it's totally fine. A little bit more repetition, a little bit more compact somehow makes the brain understand, make the, song give more sense. But then again, there are people who want to get very, very progressive and like, hey, bring out all those 30-minute plus songs. So to each their own. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just saying this is where, in my opinion, the songwriting could have been better. A little bit more compact, a little bit more variety in terms of songwriting and riffs, and this could have been better. So, is it a good or bad album is now the question you're going to say, and I'm going to say it's decent. It's definitely on the positive side of things, and I would probably compare quality-wise it to the album Why a few years ago. But I would say the previous one was better, or at least it made a better impact on me when it came out. Sometimes things change throughout the years and times and whatever, so don't take it as like something is written in stone. The point here is, if you like industrial black metal, there is no reason to skip Borgne. I think they're very solid in their own game, and if not the leading band, at least one of the better bands nonetheless. They know what they're doing, they know their style, they've honed it, not to perfection, but good nonetheless. So overall, this is indeed pretty good of an album, and like I said, either if you come from normal black metal territory, or even more so from industrial black metal territory, give this one a go. It's definitely worth a listen. Now, if you don't like it, then fine, but at least you gave it a try. And what about those who don't even like black metal to begin with? Now, this is not going to change your mind, so if you're already feeling allergic to black metal, don't waste your time on this. This is not a game changer in that sense, and it even doesn't even try to do that. And of course, those who favor the physical format, once again, LADLO, the label behind the album, has done wonderful work creating nicely looking digipacks. I tend to love digipacks, and this is no exception. Fine work by the band, by the label, and all that stuff. And if you get to see the band live, go see it. It's fierce, it's interesting. And finally, check out the interview, what was out already a couple of years ago. Fantastic, nice people doing great music. So off you go. Bye-bye.